We thought we'd do things a little differently today. Thank you very much, ARPAD, for giving a complete overview, not only of the policy, but also of the consortium, the makeup of the consortium. You'll see that it's quite a bit broader than it was in previous years. And instead of having the activity leads presenting, we thought we would have a discussion. So it's more of an interview with all the activity leads, and you'll get to see a little bit things a little bit differently. So you've had the overview from ARPAD, and now we're going to interview the activity leads. I'm just waiting for Jorge to go in the middle. I'll start, and hopefully, Jorge, you'll be in the middle in a minute, and you'll lose that slide in the middle. Jorge, please tell us a bit about yourself.
Okay, I'm coming from the Slovenian National Archives. I'm working there as an archivist, but I'm dealing with digital preservation almost 2.5 decades. And I started also joining the company, the team at the very beginning. So I'm more or less part of that team all the time.
Fantastic. Jorge, you've just mentioned you were one of those involved right at the very beginning of eArch. Looking back as an archivist, how has the digital archiving landscape changed in your opinion?
Okay, I would say that maybe firstly I could start from the legal perspective. When we started talking with the European Commission, whether they would like to or can support e-archiving transnational or pan-European activities, in that time, archiving was strictly national, regulated by the national regulations. But since then, we got Open Data Directive, new version, which mentioned also data in the archives, GDPR as well. But we are expecting to get a new reversed version of eIDAS regulation, which will, I think, have a great impact in our domain, since the e-archiving trusted service is part of the new regulation. So archiving is becoming more and more also in the focus of the European or pan-European activities, not so much just on the national level. From the point of view of archives, if I go back, at the time, we thought mainly on the ingest, and e-archiving bring us or enforced us as well to thought about the archiving also from the end user perspective. So we've put access into the focus, because access should define what we will ingest. So this was a bit new approach, and I think that was the one of the most important impacts of the e-archiving. And maybe from the technical perspective, but not so much technical, in that time we saw social media and data produced in the social media or by the social media in as a new type of data and so on. Some of them can be today already obsolete, and new challenges are coming. ARPAD already mentioned artificial intelligence, and I think that our next issues will be related to the not just archiving with archival AI, but also archiving of AI.
Oh, wow. Okay. Do you think eArch and its successors achieved what you hoped it would achieve?
The short answer would be undoubtedly yes. But I could say that that in many aspects we exceeded our expectations and planned goals. CART and geo data specifications from the first eArch project are definitely in this category, as well as the use of some tools. Among the newer products, I can highlight the reference architecture and e-health specifications, which also promise greater potential for their application or implementation in real life cases. And on the other hand, there is still room for improvement. I would certainly like that e-archiving initiative find its way to the smaller archival organizations across the Europe, and above all of the to the even larger number of data producers from different domains. And today's and tomorrow's event is therefore, at least I hope so, a step into that direction.
Fantastic. How will your work with data spaces move e-archiving forward to new horizons?
Okay, our work, or my work as a head of the deep activity, will be to find a liaison to the different data spaces and stakeholders generally. So from our perspective, from archival or e-archiving perspective, what can we benefit from outside world? Definitely better understanding of data processing and in non-archival domains, how to reuse or reuse of the tools, specifications, exchange formats, and so on. Definitely, it will help us to do our main job, our core business better. But what can e-archiving offer to the outside world or to the other domains? First of all, I think that specifications are our champions. Together with the conformity seal tomorrow, I think that Sven will talk about that. Reference architecture also mentioned have a great potential, and it will be also presented tomorrow. But raising awareness of the long-term data maintenance and accessibility is our ultimate, I would say, what we can offer to help that on that field. And not only, but we can also share some best practice across the Europe.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Jorge, and that fits beautifully into the time for the first of our speakers. So Jorge, as he said, was in charge of the activity of building synergies with data spaces. So that's tourism, media, digital cultural heritage, all looked after by DG Connect. So we have a really strong link there. And now I'm going to move on to Sven. Hi.
Yes, hello.
So Sven, please tell us a bit about yourself.
About myself, yes. So Sven Schlaut, I work for the AIT, Austrian Institute of Technology, in the Center for Digital Safety and Security, and more concretely in the Data Science and Artificial Intelligence group. So you might wonder what has that to do with digital archiving, but data is very important to AI because you always need data, you need to provide data, and archives have data, so that's where they fit together. I was working in projects related to digitization and digital preservation since about 2008, starting with the European projects Planets, impact and scape. And with eArch in 2017, I began to work more concretely in the area of digital archiving.
Thank you. So Sven, you were involved in developing the first eArch tools, the eArch Web Toolkit, etc. So how has the digital archiving technological landscape changed since you were first involved?
Yeah, so when I entered the digital archiving world, archives were in kind of a transition phase because there were more and more digital submissions and there were a lot of digitization projects going on. So kind of this transition from paper to digital archive becoming more and more prominent. I mean, it was there also before, but it was kind of a niche, a small activity compared to the real archive, which was more based on the paper archive. And that has definitely changed. So now I would say we have more mature platforms and tools. They are becoming available. Archives are definitely more involved in end-to-end digital scenarios where also the consumer expects certain services and delivery of the data. Some archives had experiences with digital preservation, but for many it was entirely a new field and they had to learn and to hire people. And that's now completely different. Today, I know archivists and librarians, for example, which have Python or other programming language skills to solve specific tasks as part of their team. And that gives them a lot of flexibility to solve concrete problems. There are certainly new technologies which like blockchain, big data, for example. Generally, there is a long way from experimentation to institutional adoption until there are really mature implementations, but they are coming up now. So implementations are taking up these technologies, and that's I think the basic change.
Yeah.
And yeah, so digital archiving has evolved from a niche to a high priority domain for the archives.
Yeah. Now, you just mentioned big data and AI. So first we had big data, then we had blockchain and AI. So do we really need these technologies? Surely just archiving methods are enough.
Yeah, it's difficult to say if we need it. It depends who we is. I think certainly the outside world needs the data, and that's why so the technology there should be experimentation with the technology to know what is how it works, what can be used. So the organizations need to keep up to date to know what is important for them, and that's why they can't just leave it out. And for some of these technologies, there's really a long way to adopt them. This is not plug and play software. So the organizations need to be prepared at many levels. And that's why you should start looking into what is it, how does it work to be able later on, because otherwise also the procurement of software is not just, yes, then I buy this, it will solve my problems, but it's a long way to adopt it. And that's why to know if you need it, you need to experiment with it in an early phase to know what is really behind the technology.
I'm going to throw you in an extra question because you've done some work with on blockchain, haven't you?
Yes, that's true. I have done some work on that, and we will also present some results of that in the webinar in 2 days. So to do some advertisement for that, if you're interested in that. So ProHub was the project that was looking into using blockchain for certain authorization scenarios.
Yeah. Another curveball. In eArch, we did quite a lot of work with big data as well.
That's true, yeah. So big data is all about having infrastructure to process large amounts of data. This goes together with a big landscape of now for the archives. It's quite complicated, I think, to look into the storage technologies that are available. From you begin with tape storage on the one hand, then you have S3 storage, you have other types of cluster storage like Hadoop and these kind of, and it's difficult to see. So how should the digital infrastructure landscape should look like in my organization, what would fit my needs. That's very difficult to answer, and you need to carefully look into that and compare the technologies. So eArch has done experiments with, for example, Hadoop cluster. We had an Hadoop cluster. We were looking into, can you have a live archive? So aside to a typical tape archive, that you have a Hadoop archive to store the data, large amounts of data, and make them accessible, and also make certain things possible, like the large-scale full-text indexing of data, so that you can actually search and find the data very quickly. So these kind of things we were looking into.
Thank you, Sven. And lastly, how will your work with the eArchiving core technologies move eArchiving forward to new horizons?
So at the core of this, I think, is really the mature and reliable validation, because we have the information packages, we have the specifications, and we need to make sure that packages fulfill the criteria that they are conformant to the specifications. And that's not too innovative, I must admit. It's rather really continuous work with perseverance. So you need to, for example, improve test corpora and aiming at a very high coverage of specification rules, that you can really check if packages raise errors, if they are not conformant, and these kind of things. And that's just a long way to go, and we need to have the continuity to provide a very mature and reliable validation software. And we also want to closely observe the need for new SITs. SITs are the content information type specifications, so they are new content types where we consider they can also be, not say standardized, but at least give recommendations and guidelines how to format these information packages for specific types of content. And we are looking into that and must observe new scenarios without at the same time becoming too scattered. So keep them together, and but always be aware that there are new scenarios might come up that we need to cope with.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Sven. That's lovely. And I'm going to move on to Carlotta now. And just before we leave Sven, Sven is our technical lead in the eArchive initiative. So not only is he the lead of the core, he's also the technical lead of the whole initiative. Carlotta.
Yes,
Hi,
hello,
Carlotta.
Janet.
Hi, Carlotta. Please tell us a bit about a bit about yourself.
Yes, I am Carlota Bustelo. I am a consultant and the lead consultant and the owner of a consultant company, mainly working in Spain, but also in other places in Latin America. And this we joined as the company the e-ARK project in 2018, I think. At that time, now we are part of the e-ARK Consortium, and that is running the e-archiving initiative. And I am the outreach activity lead, but also contributing in some of the other activities led by my colleagues in this panel.
Thank you. Carlotta, as you mentioned, you joined the eArchiving work at the building block stage. Have you found that eArchiving has helped you with your clients?
Absolutely. I really sharing knowledge and experience with other European organizations, I think it makes us grow as a specialized consultant, providing us and consequently to our clients with a broader vision. So for my background, I am a strong believer on the importance of interoperability, standardization, and the reuse of other results instead of reinventing the wheel every time. So in this sense, I have confirmed again working with the e-ARK Consortium that the organizations regarding electronic archiving and digital preservation are facing the same problems independently of their specific jurisdiction, country, or type of organization. And that is a very interesting conclusion, because if you have the same problems, you can learn how the others have faced these problems, or you can find different solutions for the same thing, and then that is a very interesting thing. But specifically, I want to mention the eArchiving reference architecture, one of the components beyond the eArch specification of the eArchiving initiative, which we have used with some of our clients when trying to include digital preservation in their strategic planning, or trying to understand how to start a preservation program. So, and the eArchiving reference architecture was, and it is, a very interesting tool, yes, to understand how to face the whole problem with a global vision, not just the technical vision, but a global vision from the point of view of an organization.
Great. In your work with standards, what are the key issues facing eArchiving at the moment?
Oh, yes, it's to be able to answer this interesting question, I want to make first a general reflection. In this field, electronic archiving, as I presume in others is the same, but what I know is this: the transition from a paper-based technology environment, by the way, which is so good that only became obsolete after 500 years, to a fully digital environment needs a fully range of new conventions and agreements on how to achieve the same objectives, but with different context. And these needs are covered by different ways, by laws, by regulation in one hand, and with standards and technical specifications in the other. So in an ideal world, standardization should be a helper or a guideline to follow, because reflects the consensus of good practices. But in electronic archiving and digital preservation in general, we can observe a contradictory trend. In one hand, we have one of the most successful standards, which is universally accepted by almost everyone. That is the OIS model, that is the ISO 14721. But in the other, we have a wide range of different national regulations, standards, and specifications, which are uniquely used at national level. So, as the European Union is especially sensible with all the ways to harmonization, this is the rationale behind the eArchiving initiative, as well as the eIDAS regulation that is mentioned before, regarding the electronic identification and signatures, that is related with the preservation because we need to preserve the digital signatures also, but also with the recent European Technical Committee on Standardization that is called Preservation of Digital Information. So that is really a thing that everyone can understand how important is this harmonization of these different regulation, standard, and specification used at national level. So, saying that, the key issue for now is working all together to make possible the confluence of the already existing regulations and standards, and make a framework for a real interoperability. So that is my point. That is in the other sense, I can say that is a big issue facing eArchiving in this moment.
It is, absolutely, and it's one that we're going to hear lots and lots more about, because that's a really key part of our what we're doing. So, Carlotta, how will your work with capacity building move eArchiving forward to new horizons?
Okay, in my view, and I think in the view of the E-ARK Consortium, capacity building is about people. And the planned work within this activity for these 2 years is to provide, through the organization of different events, spaces for sharing knowledge and exchanges, creating and with the aim of creating a transnational network of specialists. The event of today and tomorrow is the first general event that is going to be complemented with a hybrid event to be held in Salamanca in the month of October later this year. And apart for these general events, we will make at least 3 presentations of different milestones in our planning, with the new content type specification, the conformity seal that is already mentioned, but we are going to know more tomorrow, and the e-archiving curriculum that also is going to be present tomorrow. And also we want to have a space for people in specific subdomains events, and for the moment we are thinking about making events on the how to preserve e-health data. Another important subdomain is the 3D digital cultural heritage objects, and also this is not a new one, but a very interesting one, how to preserve databases. And of course, we are open to other suggestions, and then you can let us your opinion in the survey on the screen when you exit the event. We appreciate very much, very much your opinion on what is the kind of events we are looking for.
That is absolutely perfect and perfectly timed. Thank you very much, Carlotta. Okay, now over to Jamie. Hello, Jamie. Jamie, please tell us a bit about yourself. Are you muted?
I am indeed. Thank you. So I've got a somewhat convoluted background. I've got a PhD in archaeology, but I joined industry in 1997 when I became a IT analyst and training manager. I spent 7 years in industry, and then in 2004 I moved over to academia, where I became a senior lecturer and studied digital humanities, specifically digital cultural heritage. Essentially the interface between cultural heritage and technology. And I had the opportunity to work on lots of European projects like Epoch, 3D Coform, vMust, and many others. It was in 2016 that my path intersected with the eArch project, and I've not looked back since. I'm now the training lead for the eArchiving initiative.
Fantastic. Jamie, you joined in the middle of the original eArch project. How relevant is an eArchiving curriculum to our user communities?
It's incredibly relevant. Just to set the scene, one of the outcomes of the eArchiving initiative will be the deployment of a eArchiving curriculum. So essentially an academic curriculum to complement the more industry focused training that we tend to do. Now, this is important because we're living in this incredibly exciting time in the history of archiving. We're seeing the balance between physical and digital archives shifting. It's transitional, it's a tipping point. But with any transition comes challenges. And those challenges include not having the right mix of skills needed for the current environment and for potentially emerging environments. Now, I know this is probably going to sound very strange. We're presenting to an audience of people who are very interested in e-archiving, but we have to remember that we are in many ways in a bubble. And those skills are not yet out there in any degree of critical mass. So that's really one of the issues that we're going to be addressing with the curriculum, and why it's particularly relevant.
So how will the digital archiving curriculum help to provide the skills we need for digital archiving?
Well, so in the answer to my last question, I just spoke about critical mass of skills needed for e-archiving, and of course that's correct, but it is a simplification. It's not just critical mass that's important, but it's about ensuring that those who have pertinent skills have the right skills. And that's in many ways what we're aiming for. The reason we know that this is an issue is that over the years, over the various e-ARK projects, we've done numerous workshops, we've done events, we've done questionnaires, and we consistently hear from the archives that there's a dearth of the right type of skills out there. So in order to understand what skills are needed, we're going to do what we traditionally do, which is ask the community. We've always had a really positive response to our questionnaires from the community. That's what we're going to do. So for people listening to this, if you haven't already signed up to the social media, then please do sign in, because over the coming months, we're going to deploy various questionnaires to gauge the needs of the e-archiving community. And then we're going to use these responses to guide our development of the curriculum. But we're going to talk a lot more about this in detail tomorrow.
Fantastic. So alongside the curriculum, there are other things that you do, Jamie. So how will your work with e-archiving training move e-archiving forward to new horizons?
Well, first of all, I'm really glad that e-archiving training is back. As you say, the curriculum is just one small part of the training package that we're developing for the community. So over the coming years, we're going to create a multi-level, multifaceted training environment. We're going to have our monthly live training webinars that are going to look at specific training issues. These are going to be complemented by online training videos, and there'll be some face-to-face training running alongside events where possible. And all of this is going to tie in to the academic curriculum to create a holistic training environment. But if I could use this opportunity to just say a few words about the training webinars, because I think they're particularly important. So our very first webinar is on Thursday this week. So Thursday, the 27th of April at 10 CET. And it's going to be presented by Sven Schwab, who you've just heard. From the Austrian Institute of Technology, AIT, and he's going to be talking about using e-archiving standards for system-independent storage of authorization metadata. So really good technical topic to get us started at the beginning of our webinar season. Now, after this event, we'll be running the webinars on the third Thursday of each month at 10 CET. So there's a lot to look forward to in the coming months. But in answer to your sort of question about New Horizons, really we are deploying all of this to a much broader audience than we have done in the past. We're sort of bringing academia into our training as well. So it's going to be much broader. Yeah.
Is there any training that we can look forward to from the generic services projects that Arpad mentioned?
So the generic services projects have really come to a close now. The training material will be made available initially on our YouTube site. So we'll have some initial training there, but we will start to see training coming online from those projects. And this you'll see over the course of the next day also that there's some really exciting material coming from those projects.
Fantastic. Did you mention multilingual?
No, I did not mention multilingual yet. So one of the things we'll be dealing with, we'll be providing our training in a multitude of languages thanks to the e-translation service. So again, really important that we're spreading that message. Instead of previously we were just providing training in English. Now it's going to be available in a multitude of European languages.
Fantastic. Thank you very much indeed, Jamie. And on that note about multilingual provision, it's really exciting to see our consortium now has several French members and also Belgian members and an Italian member. So I'm hoping there's no other countries that I've forgotten, but it's definitely more multilingual. Thank you, Jamie. Miguel. Hello, Miguel. Please tell us a bit about yourself. You're muted. Unmute.
I am Miguel Umlauf. I am the manager of Gabinete Humbus. We are a specialized consulting firm in the field of archives and records management. I have a degree in law and a degree in political science and further education in the field of data protection, and I am the responsible. I am the activity lead for the support activity of the project and the data protection officer of the project.
Fantastic. Miguel, you joined the e-archiving work at the building block stage. How have you found the requests for support have changed since that time?
Well, currently we are not having so many because the project is in an initial phase, but we expect that at this stage more support requests will be more linked to the direct implementation of the tools. In the past, most were on how to implement, how can I implement, what are the tools. As soon as more develops we develop more the different specifications and the different components of e-archiving, we will see more on the direct application of the components. We hope to see more on the direct application of the components as we are seeing more and more organizations installing e-archiving conformant components in the systems.
Lovely. So how is GDPR or IDPR compliance relevant for e-archiving?
Well, IDPR, to start with, is mostly important for people working under the umbrella of the European Union and its institutions, whilst GDPR is for all of us, not only those living in the European Union, but also relevant for those in the GDPR affected areas, such as the UK or the European Economic Area. But it's very important. There's two issues. First would be the importance to a project like this one, that is the keeping or the sausage making about managing or handling and processing lots of data processes in order to to maintain contacts and to send information in a way that is safe and secure to all the people and to all the people that want. And on the other field, data protection and GDPR compliance is of the most importance for e-archiving or for anyone that wants to implement e-archiving. There has been a mistaken lead throughout many years, or throughout the beginning of the implementation of GDPR, that it could be in a contradiction with digital archiving the data protection could be in contradiction with digital archiving, the digital preservation of archives, but it's not so. If with a good planification of your digital preservation systems and your data protection systems, it is possible to implement fully compliant digital preservation solutions in your archives that warranty the transparency and the usefulness of your archives for the future generations in a manner that is safe for the personal, for the fundamental laws of your citizens, all the people you are managing.
That's super. So how will your work with eArchiving support and onboarding move eArchiving forward to new horizons?
Well, in the past, when eArchiving was part of the building blocks, we were part of a bigger family of projects called the building blocks. Many of our activities were under support of our onboarding or support desk activities were under this umbrella. Now we are working on our own. The team is on our own. We are exclusively dedicated to eArchiving, and we are exclusively dedicated to reaching and outreaching and having more outreach to the organizations implied in, the organizations, the stakeholders that want to take part in the digital preservation of archives. We are going to be attending all our conference, all kinds of events. We are going to be there. We are going to be there for you. We are going to be there for anyone that needs to has questions, has any question. We can send them to the appropriate expert, and we will try to expand the knowledge of the digital preservation of archives, the common tools for the digital preservation of archives to the wider European archival community.
Thank you very much. And that is the end of our session.